Morning everyone, welcome to Wild Earth Safari this morning. Beautiful morning, a little bit chilly, and I expect we're going to have a fairly nice sunset. Oh no, it's a sunrise. Did it again. Sunrise again this morning. My name is Mark, Daniel is with me on camera, and Seb is back in final control. And we're here on the western edge of the open area with everybody, well, a lot of everybody. Giraffe, a lot of zebra, and as we started getting ready to come live to you, the wildebeest came along. He must have seen them coming out onto the open area, and rather than be on his own, he's come to join them. Always better having a lot more eyes and ears around. The sad thing is that when the Kahumas were here, they killed a wildebeest. He lost all his females. They disappeared to another open area. They felt it was unsafe, and they'd only just come back for a short while. And we had all the lion here the last couple of days, so all those females and youngsters have once again disappeared to another open area somewhere. A nice group of giraffe. 5, 6, 7, at least 7 of them. We'll sit here with them for a while and watch their morning interaction before we decide where we're going to go. I'm thinking we'll go south, Treehouse Dam, and on from there, maybe down towards Twin Dams, and then eventually up towards the Oldham PC Kaya. There's so much happening yesterday afternoon. It was, I have to be honest, it was quite something to just be in camp and listen to it all unfolding on the radio. It was a little bit chaotic with so many vehicles out. It's been a long weekend here in South Africa. We had what is called Youth Day on the 16th, to commemorate 16th of June, way back in 1976. And so all the landowners are here, as well as some of the other lodges that didn't have anything on their part of the reserve this morning, yesterday afternoon. So they came to look at the leopards and things. So there was, by the sounds of things, madness with so many vehicles. We'll go and have a look and see if we can find any of whoever was found yesterday. There are lion calling as we speak up on Buffelshoek. I'm guessing they're probably around Buffelshoek Katlan, Buffelshoek itself. They sounded a little far. There's a wind coming from there, and if they were on Buffelshoek Katlan or closer, they would have been a lot louder. But I'm hoping that maybe the Vuyatela guys will go that way. Thank you, giraffe, right to left. Thank you, giraffe. Such a beautiful scene. Get different species all at once. There were impala here. The impala have moved off, so there would have been 4 different species. The giraffe on the left got some really interesting markings. One going behind the bush now. Trying to pull my neck in. The top of my head doesn't show.
Yeah, morning ball. I'm on the got it heading east. Okay, thanks. Yeah, I will send them road to the left. Okay, got it.
Morning guys, I'm on quarantine with Mango and Lomiti. There was also lots of Ngala colouring up north. Straight north from our camp, so I guess Buffelshoek, Cutline, maybe Buffelshoek. Tambuti Dam way. Morning to Richard and Lisa. Welcome to our safari this morning. What's the difference between a game reserve and a game preserve? Well, there's no such thing as a game preserve. A preserve is something you put in a jar. So many people erroneously call them game preserves. There's no such a thing. A game reserve, on the other hand, is an area where wildlife has been protected and the habitat is being protected. There's a difference between a game reserve and a national park, perhaps. Semantic, subtle difference, bureaucratic differences. And Richard was asking if hunting is allowed. Technically, no, Richard. I mean, it depends on where it is. In some countries, take Tanzania for example, the national parks are exactly that. They're national parks, they're government declared national parks. But the government also has game reserves, and it is the game reserves that they allow hunting, and the two are what's the problem there, children? Somebody got startled and startled everybody else. Yeah, cry wolf. No, lion. Cry lion, yeah. Cry lion. Oh, the sun's rising and we're not in a very good position to see it. The mast not going to be in the way.
The aerial there.
I can move, but they've all come fairly close to us now. Beautiful sunrise. There we go. Can get to it. Almost right behind us. Anyway, so the two are run by different departments of the government, and game reserves do bring in revenue from issuing hunting permits. But that's Tanzania. In South Africa, the game reserves, these are private game reserves. They can't be called national parks because they're all privately owned land declared as game reserves to protect the wildlife. And here in the Sabi Sand, no, there's no hunting. There's no hunting in Timbavati or Bululi, Olifants, the other, what's the word, accumulation, no, conglomeration of privately owned reserves, except there's one called the Umbabat, and then the Parks Board does issue hunting license. Well, that's not large scale, sort of one of these and one of those, and it's something that where a lot of us are fighting in that part in the northern Timbavati. It's shocking that in this day and age there are still places where wildlife roams freely like that, and it's ostensibly set aside for photographic work, and yet the government issues permits for some animals. Look if we can try and do some arty shots here. The sun rising and the likes of giraffe and zebra. Sorry, madam. Venture into the Mrs. G. I want to get the sun. No. I want to get the sun with you. Beautiful. Welcome to Africa and a beautiful sunrise with some of Africa's special animals, zebra and giraffe. Can't get more typical African than that. Go up ahead and turn around. Hello, Mrs. Giraffe. Hello, Diana. Thanks for your question. All these different kind of herbivores come together when they're lying around, or do they stick together generally? Generally they do. Not only when they're lying around, but it's their habits of staying together and seeking each other out that helps to protect them against lion. And that's why they do that, because, well, the giraffe have got excellent eyesight, and everybody knows that. And they also got their heads above the trees. Zebra, perhaps their hearing is better. Wildebeest, well, a bit of both. But it's safety in numbers. The more eyes and the more ears, the sooner they can.
I don't know if you copy. We had a quadro for some trunker coming south, about an hour south, along Kestrel, going across your boundary at 6 o'clock this morning. I tried to call you, but I couldn't get you. So I tried to you down and you just follow up.
Okay. Whoa. Yeah, I dropped my tea. Fortunately, the lid kept most of the tea in the cup. Got a little bit of a wet leg now. The giraffe have moved off, going up towards Zoe's Road, and the wildebeest has headed that way too. What's this giraffe picking up? I wanted to pick something up off the ground. Hello, Bev. I need to know what type of giraffe we're seeing here. These are southern giraffe. Everybody wants to move off to the right into the thicker bush for the day. Getting cheeky. Susie, interesting question about the manes, and before the zebra all disappearing, but while we still got the giraffe, we can have a look at the giraffe mane as well. And it's basically a row of hair that helps to protect the back of the neck, especially for animals whose heads are moving through the bush a lot. It's, I guess, in a way for zebra when they lift their head after grazing, if they don't knock their heads, and the giraffe too. Now, the reason why horses, perhaps, and I'm guessing, and this is sort of straight out of the blue, I've thought about it before, and I remember having this question before. I think horses have been bred, different breeds, they've been bred, and perhaps it's in the genetic manipulation of horses that one finds long hair on the mane that falls over. It might also be a genetic thing amongst horses that you don't have in zebra. But I was just pointing out the giraffe because it's with zebra it's similar in that that's their genetic makeup. Genetically, their mane doesn't grow long enough to fall over the side of their neck. But also because they're living in thick bush and thorn trees, and that would just get caught on everything. So I guess over time, evolution has just kept the mane short. And it's possible through the interbreeding of different breeds of horses that you get the longer manes. I don't know, we must have a look at wild horses and see if they have long manes. But then also the grassland, well, that doesn't really work for me, because zebra are also, I suppose, grassland animals. Laurie wants to know if giraffe ever have twins. Not to my knowledge, Laurie. There are not that many animals that do have twins in the bush, because basically it takes one strong animal and it makes two weak. Instead of one strong youngster being born, you have two smaller youngsters that are going to be a lot more vulnerable. But no, I can't remember if I've ever heard of giraffe twins. I guess it's remotely possible, and that every now and then maybe, but it's definitely not common, and it's just not. It's not. I don't even know the word. I don't know why. Mornings I just can't get my brain around words and things. But it's not prudent to have twins when you've got so many predators and having to divide the energies between two youngsters as opposed to just one. Oops. Leopard tracks, but it's didn't hear a word there, Seb. Well, I heard it, but I didn't understand a word. It's cutting in and out. Oh, Pam, talking about the helicopter yesterday. Is it a anti-poaching patrol or a private plane? Absolutely no idea, Pam. It was maybe 2 seconds that I saw a helicopter flying at high speed above the treetops. It was a military, what we call a Puma helicopter, came from the military base, probably in Hoedspruit. And I don't even think members of the military knew why it was flying. Only the... absolutely no idea why a helicopter was flying, Pam. None whatsoever. Couldn't even hazard a guess. Military. It's not something us, the public, would know about. It was rather unusual that it was flying so low. Who knows? Maybe it was involved in something to do with anti-poaching. But there's absolutely no way of knowing and no way of finding out. Sorry to not be able to give you an answer there. Not really fond of hunting questions, I'm afraid. Marjorie in Texas. I get too worked up when we talk about hunting, so if we can rather pass on hunting questions. My Marjorie was asking, are there ever people caught hunting? Hunting is no, not hunting. There are people that are caught poaching. What happens to them? I don't know, Marjorie. The government doesn't have strict enough controls. They don't have a strong enough judicial system to discourage these things. Likely a fine, maybe a short jail term, depending on what they were hunting and when they were caught. It all depends on so many different factors. Lion tracks here. This is not from those lion yesterday. This is different. This must be those 5 females that... They're down here. I'm sure. Coming back onto the open area. Let's just go a little bit further and check down. There seem to be a few more tracks. All coming back up from the bottom. Interesting. Let's just go a bit further down towards Philemon's Dip and see where they went. Okay, evidently quite a few questions coming in. Let's see what I can do with those. Morning, Diane. Texas. I don't know if I have any idea why the lion charged us yesterday. The lion didn't charge us yesterday. We were not charged by a lion yesterday. We had one of the young females sort of stalking with us in a playful way. Why it was doing it, unfortunately, I can't tell you. It's only something that the lion knows. It's playful. I don't know what its intentions were, but it was not a charge. It wasn't an aggressive action. It was merely just a lioness trying to have a game. I just didn't want it to get too close to the vehicle. Elaine in Illinois. Ellen or Elaine? What is the purpose of the giraffe horns serve? Oh, it's Ellen. Yes, Ellen. Thought it might have been Ellen. Morning, Ellen. How are you? And how's the class? I guess no school today. Weekend, isn't it? Still Sunday. Yeah, all day. Ellen wants to know what's the giraffe horn. What purpose do they serve? Whether they're made of bone or cartilage. They are bone, Ellen. They are part of the skull, covered in hair. With the bulls, their hair has come off. They are bald. That's from fighting. They lose the hair on the top of the horns. I'm just coming back onto quarantine because I want to look. We didn't come very far along the open area. None of the other guys did either. Wanted to see if there was sign of those other cats. But they're actually not really called horns, Ellen. We refer to them as ossicones because they don't have the horny covering that the antelope horns have. And I guess those are true horns. Sandy, the difference between the male lion's home range and the male leopard's home range. Yeah, huge difference. Probably find you can fit a few male leopard territories inside a lion's territory. Although, having said that, size of the territories depend on so many different factors. For leopard, for one thing, not only the availability of prey species or the density of prey species, but also with leopard, it's the density of leopards that can determine the size of a territory. And I guess in places where there aren't that many leopards, a male leopard will have a much larger territory to incorporate to incorporate females within his females' territories within his territory. And with lion, it's sometimes also dependent on availability of prey, habitat types. Five lion went. Michelle and Glenn, what kind of training did I go through? Oh, not too much training. It's difficult, not difficult to answer. My answer to that question will give you a false idea of the kind of training that is needed and the kind of training that guides go through these days. I've been at this for a long time, and as such, I'm just trying to think of something here because I didn't hear them talk about these 5 line yesterday. Ephraim, come in. Do you know if those 5 Angala from Philemon's Dip were found yesterday afternoon?
Yeah, there was we brought them called Category no, I think it's not the check that and we do another one from the Bengal Tragedy.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, go. Alright, thanks, Abel. See, this cat gets around. That's for sure. Today, training of guides go through quite rigorous training courses, a lot of theory, long periods of practical apprenticeship, I guess you could call it. When I started, there wasn't as much of an industry as there is now. In fact, there were a handful of lodges. There were no guide training schools. In fact, a friend of mine was the first person to start guide training, and that was after he had developed a training course at one of the lodges, and it was one of the first lodges to offer a training course for prospective guides, and they'd get in 10 guys and train them up and then put them through a test and then choose the 2 best ones, or one or 2 best ones. That's how I started, was just my knowledge from growing up with the bush stood me in good stead when it came to competing with, I guess you could say, city boys for a position in the bush. There weren't that many people that were interested in those days as well. I mean, we were talking about the mid-80s, when if there was a guide position going, you'd have maybe, if not even a dozen applicants. Today you might get a couple of 100 applicants. Rhino was sleeping in the road. Something up there with a vehicle. A vehicle. Hi, how are you? Good. What was that? him. Thanks. I was looking at you. Missed an elephant because there were ladies on the vehicle. What can I say? I was distracted. No, you know what it was? I was trying to avoid hitting the vehicle. Look at him. I was looking to the right and the elephant's to the left. Look at him. What is he doing? He's gonna break his tusk. What on earth is he doing? Resting his head. The same bull we left yesterday with the just beyond the lion. I have to say that's one of the strangest things I've seen. Just resting his head like that, whatever it is that he's doing. It's like he's got a hangover. Maybe he's got toothache. He's hanging. Good question, Jody. New Mexico. Elephants get headaches. I'm sure they can. I'm sure every animal can get a headache. And yes, that's another possibility. Fighting a hangover. not a hangover, headache. His temples are a little sunken. He's not. That might be an indication that he's not very well. To some degree, as they age, their temples get hollow, but it can also be an indication of an illness. He's not a very old bull. That was also asking if if maybe he has a toothache. That's what I thought at first. Maybe the base of the tusk, the way he was almost putting weight on the tusks. Thank you. Janie, if we knew the elephant was sick, would we intervene? Definitely not, Janie. This ties in, and I had a question from Laurel earlier that I didn't get to. How big is this area and what season it is? But in terms of how big this area is, we're in an area of several million acres, a population of 14,000 elephant. This is nature at its rawest. I mean, this is we're only observers here, and well, if there was a man-made injury or a man-made problem that an animal is injured because of it, snares or such like, then we would intervene. But generally speaking, it is important that nature takes care of itself, and there are. Let's go a little bit more forward. Humans can't play God too much, and in such a large area, nature has to be able to play itself out, no matter what we see, and no matter how upsetting it may be, because after all, these are things that have been happening for millions of years. We've only just arrived on the scene in the last couple of hundred, and it's the very thing that drives the integrity of a species is when animals fall sick, is their ability to overcome it, and if they don't, they die. If they do, then they are obviously healthy enough to breed, and that helps with the integrity of the species as a whole, the genetic pool within the species. So it's actually detrimental to wildlife to help it all the time. If you have animals that are weakened by something and we help them and they breed, you're likely to get a population of animals that are susceptible to something. Whereas if nature was to take its own course, under the circumstances, you'd have those animals succumbing to a disease, and the population of species of that animal being able to resist it, because those that survive are the ones that are able to pass on their genes. I hope if that makes any sense to you, but that was pure speculation. That maybe he has a headache or a toothache. Also that he's a little unhealthy, just looking at his temples. Who knows? Not such a small elephant, actually. He's quite a big boy. Probably in his 30s. And Laurel, we are in winter. We're a few days away from the winter solstice. In the northern hemisphere, you're about to have your summer solstice. Our dry season. So the Kruger itself is a few million acres. We're part of the Sabi Sand, which is roughly 130,000, 140,000 acres. And within the Sabi Sand, we can only travel over this one area that is Djuma Game Reserve, which is about 2,500 acres. Might sound confusing, but there are no boundaries. There are no physical boundaries. There are political boundaries. And the first political boundary, or invisible boundary, I guess, is the boundary that is between Djuma Game Reserve and neighbouring properties. And it's Djuma plus all these neighbouring properties that make up the Sabi Sand Game Reserve, which is a private game reserve incorporated into Kruger in the early 90s. And that's where the other political issue comes in, because this is private land. The Kruger National Park is a government national park. So there's no interaction between the humans of the Sabi Sand and the Kruger National Park. However, the animals can move freely between the two. That's the whole purpose of it. We're creating a huge area that animals can roam freely, yet humans are restricted to either concessions in the national park or the privately owned land here in the Sabi Sand. And we are one of those privately owned properties, Djuma Game Reserve. We are operating on Djuma. Well, you can hardly see him, so let's move a little. He is moving into somewhat thicker vegetation now. So we can leave him be, turning his back on it. It's quite interesting actually, watching him rest his head on that marula tree like that. I'm leaving one in Dlov between Rebecca's Road and Spam Road on Philemon's Cut Line, open lock. Susie, come in. Did you come down Zoe's Road before Philemon's Cut Line?
Rebecca's Road to Philemon's Cut Line, but now we are at BC High, there's Scorpio.
Okay, copy, thanks. Are you going to find me in Ingwe after this?
We were actually going to head back that way so we could pick up her and tell you a story.
Okay, I'll come around that way in a bit when we go up Zoe's Road. Got the rhino at the hyena den. But Karula, supposedly, melanistic goshawk, please land in a tree. We talk about melanism a lot, about the dominance of melanin in an animal's body, and what pretty much creates, stop making a noise, vehicle, what creates a black leopard or a black panther. And I just heard a lot of birds and squirrels shouting, and there was a black goshawk flying across. It's not called a black goshawk, it's probably an African goshawk, or maybe actually a Gabar goshawk that is in melanistic form. And it was about to land in that marula tree, but it didn't. It continued on. I wonder where it is. It would be nice to show you that melanistic goshawk. Jenny from Ohio, have ever seen the Big Five? Well, yes, often, many times. I live with them. gonna fix it. That's not why it doesn't have any power, that's a fuel issue. But that's just moving that cowling again. And forever bending onto the brake disc and squeaking. Do the trick for the next few weeks unless we hit a tree stump somewhere and it starts squeaking again. Okay. Brrr. So yes, the Big Five. We live with the Big Five. It's not often that we see them in one drive. We could. I mean, there was the Big Five here on Juma yesterday. And I guess in theory, if we were out on a drive yesterday afternoon, we could have seen the Big Five in one drive. But sometimes, because of the distances between the animals, as with yesterday, it would have required racing around, driving very fast from one sighting to the other. And that's not always conducive to a good game drive. So, while we'd like to maybe try and get the Big Five every now and then, and then of course there's a lot of hype over the Big Five. It would mean having to race around and not look at anything else. The Big Five comes from hunting days, and I have to be honest with you, there are other animals that are just as important. I mean, giraffe are not part of the Big Five, yet they are really incredible animals to watch. Cheetah and wild dog are not part of the Big Five, yet they're more important than most of the Big Five. In fact, they're a lot more important than the likes of buffalo, in my opinion, because they're an endangered species. And I have to be honest, I just don't think that the Big Five is much of a big deal, because it's a thing that comes from the days of hunting. Hunters referred to the Big Five as the 5 most dangerous animals to hunt. There was no fun hunting giraffe or wild dog or cheetah. They're non-aggressive animals. And once again, it's a hunting thing. I don't like hunting things. Morning, Deborah. What are the first plants that produce fruits when we start going into warmer weather? Oh, I wonder, let me think. First fruits. For humans or for animals or for birds? Gee, it's late in summer already when things like jacket plums and sour plums. A lot of the fruits only come about towards the mid and late summer. A lot of the trees that flower in the early spring are trees that don't really have fruits, they have seeds or seed pods. Jackalberries maybe. Yeah. Jackalberries are rather fruit very late in the season actually. I have to think about it. Never really thought about what's the first fruit that we see. I said maybe it's a sour plum. Zarmenia caffra. Bitterly cold wind blowing this morning. We have a dilemma. We wonder whether we should go up to Impala Plains or on to Wertella Access Road. Karula came across just south of the gate. And my guess is that she would probably be walking down Wertella Access Road more than going to Impala Plains. So let's try straight to Wertella Access Road. I can't believe how this leopard gets around. She was yesterday evening with Mvula, watching Mvula kill and eat a warthog. She was in the extreme southeastern point of our traversing area, and this morning the extreme northwestern point. I suppose. Yeah, northwestern point, which is about where the gate is. It's only a distance of a few kilometers, but it's still a considerable distance. It's not the first time that she's actually been on one end of the property and one day and the next day on the other end. Patrolling her territory, and I guess maybe now on her way back to her cubs, who I think are somewhere near the dam. Thank you. Oh boy, this is a cold wind. Oh. Oh. Should have done this a long time ago. No gloves on. Marginally warmer. Hello, Debbie. Wants to know if there's any chance of seeing wild dogs, since I mentioned wild dogs earlier. Having just said the name wild dog, I saw a tree trunk that looked like a wild dog's ears. My heart skipped a beat. Yes, we do occasionally see wild dog, and there's always a chance. One of the reasons why we need to look at the ground all the time for tracks like here. Leopard. Excuse me a second. Yeah, someone. Picked up tracks very fresh of Karula and cubs. And that's why we have to look for tracks, because if we just drive around without looking at the ground, we don't have any idea where to even start looking for some of these animals. And when it comes to wild dog, because they move over such large areas, they move quickly and silently. Yeah, in the road. Somewhere up ahead. Come on, Karula, please be in the road around the bend. I mean around the corner. So yes, there's always a chance that we're going to pick up tracks or find wild dog. More often than not, it's because we find their tracks and we're able to coordinate with other guides and find out where they are. Okay, she left the road. Tracks of her coming this way, which must have been maybe while we were watching that elephant. And then the tracks came back this way. So maybe somewhere around here. We have to do a bit of up and down looking for her. Might have cut through to quarantine. Only tracks of Karula coming this way, but there were tracks of her and cubs. Maybe where she left the cubs and she's just picked them up. Which means that maybe she's gone back towards One-Eyed Pan and the area south of the gate if she made a kill somewhere there. Which means we need to go to... oh, lion tracks. Pretty fresh too. Almost expected to find Karula on the road because those tracks were fresh, so fresh. Lion tracks not very fresh. One or two look fresher than others. Dove tracks on top of them. Now that's one way of also aging tracks, seeing the likes of tracks of doves on top. Doves is early morning, they're all walking around the roads. Easier for them to find seed in the roads very early in the morning, late in the afternoon. Yeah, tracks, very fresh. Well, she came in onto Zoe's Road and there are tracks there where she picked up the cubs. I don't know if you want to try Sandy Patch and I'll try it this way around on Impala Road. There are also lion tracks here. They might have gone north. Well, I've told her to do that. You've already found me an elephant that was there. And yeah, which I'll go to just now. So yeah, you'll find her for me. Okay, let's go to Impala Plain. And she might have cut through that way. Yeah, no, yeah. Hello, Deborah. Referring to a root parasite I found recently, well, a while ago. Striga, S-T-R-I-G-A. Could have been a striga. I can't really remember what it was, because it also looked like a lachenalia. If I remember correctly. Is it common? Fairly common. Not as common as the root, some of the plants in the Cape. Now the Cape, down near Cape Town, the other end of the country, has a very unique floral kingdom. In fact, it's one of the most diverse floral kingdoms in the world. Second only to maybe the Amazon. There's a lot more variety of root parasites down there. But I think that was a Striga. S-T-R-I-G-A. Not Striga elegans though, it was another Striga. I can't remember whether I photographed it or not. What I'm doing now is I'm driving over tracks that are going to help us find her better. Hello, Deborah Rose. Wants me to talk about myself. I can't talk about myself. Actually, somebody asked a question earlier. I think it was Gary and Michelle. Was asking about, they were asking about the training required for guiding and wanting to know what I did for vacation. Because this job seems like a vacation. Well, it is a way of life. And what I do for vacation is exactly the same thing I do for my job, really. When I go on holiday, I'm in the bush driving around my Land Rover, doing pretty much the same thing. Not as much, times when I won't drive around, I'll be at home reading, fixing things. I don't take a drive for a day or two. But yes, we all have accommodation at camp. Our camp, we rent a section of the staff quarters of Boyatela, of Djuma. We all live on site. Single quarters kind of thing. And what else can I tell you? Pardon? No, I've just dropped it. It was here. Just picked up a stick. Needed to reverse to drop it. What can I say? When I'm not here in the Sabi Sand, I'm in the Timbavati. That's where my home is. It's another private game reserve, also part of Kruger, just north of here. Actually, it's north of the Timbavati, in a part of the Timbavati known as the Umbabat. U-M-B-A-B-A-T, Umbabat. And that was our holiday home as a kid. It's a family property. We are shareholders of a property there, and we have a little old, very old, falling down bungalow. Lovely little thatched place. Family spread out a little bit. Once a year, go and visit family in the Cape. Annette wants to know if I'm married. No. I have no means. I can barely support myself, let alone a woman. Not married. Diana wants to talk about the quarantine area and the history of it. I actually don't really know. I mean, I only know what I've picked up from predecessors. It wasn't a cattle ranch before. It was rural area. There were, I think, a long time ago, judging by the scars on some of the marula trees, there were fences around the area. And yes, judging by the amount of alien plant species that are growing in some of the disturbed places, there must have been cattle here, because you find under a lot of the trees in places like Quarantine, the likes of blackjack and zinnias growing, and they only grow in really disturbed soils that have been disturbed by the overgrazing of cattle. So once upon a time, yes, there might have been, well, there were cattle here. Quarantine was called Quarantine because when it first became a reserve, it was self-contained, it was fenced in, and the owners, as far as I'm aware, I don't know how true this is, and I don't know how accurate it is. I would have to actually speak to the owners and get it straight from them to get an idea of things. But evidently, It was an area they closed off so that when they were importing animals to restock the area after it had been cattle area, they built pens, and that's where animals were kept in quarantine before they were released into the wild. Because when you are translocating animals, you can't just open a truck and let them run free. They've got to acclimatize to the area, to the sounds, the smells. So it was important to quarantine them. I don't like the name quarantine because it does conjure up all sorts of images, and it is no longer an area used for quarantining animals, and it raises so many questions when we use the word quarantine. However, it's called quarantine, nothing I can do about it. I sometimes just refer to it as the open area near camp to avoid confusion. I guess we should have checked Triple M, the main road. Laurie wants to know what my favorite place is of all the places I've traveled through. Difficult. Sure. Okavango Delta, one of them. A couple of places in Tanzania. One or two places in Kenya. It's hard to have a favorite when the natural world is such a beautiful world. Some kudu running up ahead. Just one youngster running. The rest of them are quite relaxed. Buffalo tracks. Nice peaceful herd of kudu. It means there'll be no cats here. No tracks either. Jane, what's my favourite part of the park? What you see there again? I'm not too sure what you're referring to. You're referring to the huge Kruger, or the Sabi Sand, or just Djuma? I mean, Djuma. I don't really have a favourite place of Djuma. Let me think. Maybe. I don't know. Really. I don't really have a favourite. Quite a small area. It's pretty uniform. There's nothing really that stands out here at Djuma. I suppose my favourite part of the Kruger area, the greater Kruger Park, is home. I don't know Kruger too well. I travelled through Kruger extensively as a child. Of course, being a child, I just went wherever mum and dad went. Take the power line back to Zoe's Road. It's difficult to answer these questions of favourites or the best sighting I've had or the best this. When it's been a part of my life for so long, and there's just so much that it's hard to choose a favourite. Any wild what? Sorry? Seb. Oh, orchids. Yes, so, and Deborah wants to know if we had wild orchids. We do, Deborah, we do. We have in particular two types of tree orchid. There should be one or two other ground orchids. You get different types of orchids. You either get the orchids that grow on trees, orchids that grow on the ground, orchids that grow on dead wood. And we have the giant tree orchid, Ancelia gigantea, beautiful yellow flower. I see one, I'll show you. I don't know of any where we are right now. Most of them are in a particular band around Treehouse Dam area. Rebecca's Road to Treehouse Dam, down onto Elephant Skull Road. That's where I've seen most of the tree orchids. Assassin's Dam. About somewhere far away. Vivian, morning to you. Hypothetical question. If the elephant was ill, the elephant that we saw, would the lions track him? Would the lions follow him until he was in a more weakened state? Not these lions, no. I think in some parts of Africa, yes. Some parts of Kruger, bigger prides. Certainly up in Botswana, where lion take down elephant, yes. But not here, I doubt. He's too big. And of course, lion might end up doing so for weeks on end. So, no, I don't think they would do that, Vivian. Oh boy, where are we going to look next? Back along Zoe's to Rebecca's Road, maybe. Let's try again. Sherry, most scariest episode. I guess one particular Sunday morning, many moons ago, when I was underneath an elephant. I guess it's probably about my most scary moment. Or maybe it was one particular hot November evening at home, all alone, after I'd stood on a scorpion. There was no electricity, no phone, no means of getting any help. Come on, Vanda. So I'm going to have to bleed the fuel system now. I was paralyzed. I was paralyzed with pain and also from a neurotoxin. got to a point where I couldn't move a muscle and I didn't know what to do. One or two other incidents come to mind.
Thompson eventually leaving on.
Yeah, eventually wore off after about 18 hours.
You were carrying on for 18 hours.
Yeah, I wasn't able to sleep or anything. I was just. It happened that night, and it was about midday the next day that I could start moving around. Early in the evening, I was about to cook dinner in my fire, and so it was probably about 7 o'clock in the evening. That perfect time of the day that the scorpions are out, and also the worst scorpion that one can find, Parabutus transvalicus. We're going to go and have a look at Triple M now. I have to. I've got a feeling that she's off the road somewhere with her youngsters, which means that unless we see a tail flicking. But there was only that one patch where they were on the road. That's why I think she's off-road somewhere with her cubs. There seems to be maybe a spot where she met up with them. And I don't know where she went from there because I didn't follow tracks properly. But let's go and have a look at Triple M quickly. See if she went back that way. Been rhino here. And hyena. So it doesn't look like there's been a cat. Okay. And there are tracks here, but they're old cruiser tracks. Might have been yesterday when she came back from the other side of the world. Interesting question, Jennifer. Toronto. Oh yes, sorry to all you Canadians for missing out on the Stanley Cup. Well done to Boston Bruins. Oh, there's the rhino tracks. Jennifer wants to know if something gets bitten by a snake and then eaten, will the venom affect the animal that's eating the creature that was bitten by the snake? No. Venom doesn't have a secondary effect. I mean, theoretically, you could swallow venom and not be affected by it unless you had an ulcer in the mouth or you had something wrong with your stomach lining where the venom could get into your bloodstream. But venom doesn't have a secondary effect. I mean, in much the same way that a snake bites its prey and its prey dies from the venom, and then the snake swallows its own venom with the prey that it's swallowing. And also in much the same way as animals and birds that eat venomous snakes, they can eat them and not be affected by them, but maybe they would be affected by them if they were bitten and the venom got into their bloodstream. It's a different matter. So excited, those tracks, the cubs are so fresh. Hey, Laurie. Laurie's asking if an animal dies, an animal with tusks or horns that are valuable, if an animal dies, what happens to those items that are potentially valuable? Well, here in the Sabi Sand, the Parks Board issues a permit to the landowner, and the landowner gets to keep the tusks. Let's say it's an elephant. I don't know what happens if it's a rhino. I must find out, because there was that rhino that died on Arathusa. But the tusks stay with the landowner here in the Sabi Sand. What happens in Kruger, they go into a vault, into a central collection point that the national park has in Kruger. There was also a question earlier when I was about to be on Triple M. I didn't really hear Seb very well. It was on snakes, I think. What was that question, Seb? Static was too bad on the radio. Sherry wants to know if we see snakes when we're out on drive, and if we do, what kind of snakes. Occasionally we do. I mean, we see more snake tracks than snakes, even this time of the year. There are snake tracks. In fact, this is the perfect time of the year to see a snake, because it's cold and you get these lovely warm days, and you're likely to have snakes out sunning themselves. The other day I saw a snake just disappearing down a hole. What kind of snakes? Gosh, there are many different kinds of snakes, but puff adders, pythons, mambas, worm slung, sand snakes, grass snakes, different types of those. There are many varieties of snakes. It's not just one or two. There are many different kinds of snakes. Cobras. We don't get to see them very often because they pick up the vibrations in the vehicle and they disappear before we get to see them. So unfortunately, as much as I would love to show you snakes, it's not really easy. Sometimes we get to see them when the birds are shouting at them, because birds don't like snakes at all. Justine Bowman. Chris, no, I don't know the person. Justy Bowman, no, never heard of the name. Sorry, Chris. In relation to what? If you could. I don't know what the Drifters Tour is, I'm afraid. So I'm oh yes, Overland Tour. I don't know any of the guides of Drifters, I'm afraid. I used to many years ago. But no, I don't know the Drifters people, and I don't know the gentleman you're talking of, Justy. Rather a little obscure. In Washington, do we eat a lot of bugs as we drive along without a windshield? Not at this time of the year. Not any insects at all at this time of the year. Maybe the odd fly. Occasionally in summer, especially driving along and talking, there's often been times, not often, occasionally, there have been these times when we're driving along and chatting away and an insect flies into the mouth. Has happened before. In summer months, more likely than now. There aren't any insects at this time of the year, or very, very few at any rate. And even now, it's a little bit cold. The morning drive's a little bit cold for insects. Maybe afternoons, more likely to find insects, maybe flying around. But it's not that bad. Can be sometimes on warm summer evenings with warm summer evenings with the light. So now there are a few birds here. I'm thinking that maybe there was a snake sunning in from that termite mound. Hello Linda, how's Pepperbird? Can I tell you about the discussion that I had with that surgeon? I can't really, I really can't remember 90% of what he was saying. But no, I mean there's not really much I can tell you about that discussion. I mean he was talking about, I honestly can't remember most of what it was. Gosh. Sorry, Linda. Yeah, Karula's tracks coming. So, Hyena, a lot of hyena tracks, but amongst all of it are Karula's tracks going that way, which I guess would have been last night. Where are we? Just driven past the orchid. I was going to stop and show you the orchid, and then I got sidetracked by Google tracks. Sidetracked, haha. Try to look at it from this angle anyway, because we would have been looking into the sun. But there it is in the fork of a tree. It's one of the dozen or so specimens that we have here at Djuma that I know of. And there are probably a lot more that I haven't seen. But that's one of the tree orchids. Those seed pods. It's flowering time, probably around September, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was Deborah that was asking about the tree orchid, or about orchids. That's the leopard tree orchid. Oh, sorry. See if our elephant's made his way to the dam yet. Might be down at Treehouse by now. He was sort of heading in that direction. Was facing in that direction, if anything, more than heading in that direction. See if we can find those rhino that were around here as well. We have to give up on where Karula is because I didn't follow the tracks properly. And my guess is she's gone back to the west, or in the westerly direction because she came from this area, or from the southeast. She went up Rebecca's road to a point, crossed over onto Zoe's road, met with the cubs. No. No. That can't be, because she was seen on her own near One-Eyed Pan, crossing onto the side of the road. Henry, come in.
What?
You have any luck with that Ngalangkon?
No luck. Also, just talking to my daughter. Yeah, but they left north by Batalia Road towards Nara South, but there was no call towards Nara South. So they must be
Okay, thanks. Where are those two, my daughter? There we go again. Oh, okay, thanks. Careful. Smell line.
The tree for one is much more darkness.
Rhino! Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at least. That's what Rhino. I'm glad they're here because this is what Rhino do in this cold wind. 1, 2, 5, 6 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't count because it's just this wall of rhino. I think that one is the same one as the rump that I'm looking at, so that makes 4 in the road and 1 standing up.
Crash of fire.
There were actually 6 of them yesterday. You can actually zoom in on this one in front. You can zoom in on its feet and you can actually get to have a look at the toes, how those nails work. Remember, when we're pointing out rhino tracks to you, we show you the one toenail in the front and the 2 toenails on the side. Five and Combi on Weaver's Nest, just south of Chelapan Road. D&J, morning to you. Is there a lodge here at Djuma, and what does it cost? The lodge is called Vuyatela, 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 which means go and come back. No, it means come back again. Vuya is to come, Tela is again. Come again. Vuyatela. Vuyatela. In Zulu. Vuyatela. I don't know what it costs in dollars, I'm afraid. You'd have to probably have a look at the Djuma website to get an idea of the tariffs. There's 6 rhino, because there isn't Levani. There are 6 rhino here. 4 in the road, 1 standing at the back there, and then just off to my right through the bush is our floppy ear rhino that we call Ndlevani. So this is a crash of 6 nowadays, which is interesting. I wonder who the 6th character is, adding to the usual crash of 5. 6 in Combi Weaver's Nest, not 5. So one of the main differences in the different rhino are that the white rhino, this is the white rhino, or square-lipped rhino, they are sociable, they are gregarious, live in groups, as opposed to the other rhino, the black rhino, which is solitary.
So Shorthorn doesn't mind them on his territory.
I guess not. I'm thinking that he might be amongst them here.
We're still at standing for Fuzzy India. As he was crossing Gary Main to the north, onto the plains driveway. We still at as Fuzzy was crossing north into Torchwood.
Could be a young female's one in front, and as this floppy ear rhino is approaching him, she's huffing and puffing in communication. Obviously means something. There again, that bull now turning around, and he did that, stopping the youngster. I think he wants to squeeze in there. very special to see 6 rhino together. You do get larger groups of white rhino. I've seen up to 13 together. But still, in this day and age, very special. Yeah, I thought he wanted to just try and squeeze in, get out of the wind. Packed like sardines. The one's gonna lie down. There we go. Bye bye. Good night. I guess we're not going any further south from where we are. Not immediately. Deborah, have we ever seen any play behavior with rhino? Yes. I've seen young rhinos bouncing around, having fun. I've seen adult rhino bouncing around, having fun on the first rains. With the first rains falling, ground starts getting wet. Rhino having fun. Laurie saying something about rhino being related to horses. Do they have similar teeth? A gap between the molars and the incisors. And do their teeth continue to grow? I think the only relationship between rhino and horses is that they're odd-toed ungulates. I don't think there's any other closer relation than that. As far as the teeth are concerned, I guess all the herbivores, to some extent, their teeth continually grow because the teeth are continually wearing down up to a point. I don't know much about the dental growth of horses, let alone rhino, to be able to tell you whether the dental structure is the same. Just trying to think of the skull of a rhino. No, I don't think there's any similarity whatsoever. I mean, rhino don't have the same kind of teeth. I wonder if I've got a picture of a rhino skull. Dawn! How many babies do rhino have and do they play? Only one at a time, and yes, they do play a little bit. They bounce around. Let's see, should be a rhino skull here amongst all these skulls. Maybe not. Look at 282. Well, they got the skulls, but they don't show the teeth. In fact, it's not a very good picture at all, not even worth trying to show you. I think it's the first time I've ever seen this rhino lying down, lined up in such a way. It almost makes it impossible to count them.
All there, eh?
It's a carpet of rhino. It's rather incredible. Let's see if I can get a little bit higher up to take a photograph. The wind is making them nervous. Quite a strong wind just came up now, getting her to stand up. There were two other rhinos seen up on Cheetah Cut Line, and I'm wondering if that's not the male and female we usually see up there. But having said that, then we've got this young female here. A small female, that might also be her. I think she wants to be in the middle now too, because she's been on the edge with the cold wind. She's a he. She's a young bull. Okay. I wonder if that's not maybe Shorthorn's female's calf that's now grown up and joined this crowd. But yes, wants to get out of the cold wind and go and lie in the middle. And that, yeah, that rhino at the back does have quite a horn on him, or her. Sometimes you find the female horns a lot longer and thinner because she doesn't fight with them. They do continue to grow in it, and they do break off, especially during fighting. But also the males tend to rub their horns a lot, which keep them shorter and blunter. The females don't do as much with their horns, so their horns tend to be sharper and longer. Not a hard and fast rule, but generally speaking. But yes, the horn does continue to grow. The longest horn I've ever seen, probably close to 2.5 feet. There are 2 rhino there that have actually got some pretty decent horns on them. We're going to go to Treehouse Dam, but we're going to do a roundabout route. We'll leave these rhinos sleeping. Hello, Angie. Oh, the rhino lying in the road to look out for predators. Or is it just coincidence? 3 of lying facing one direction and 3 in the other. They're lying in the open because it's comfortable. Sand. They like lying on sand. It helps to mold to fit their bodies. It's warmer. You'd think that maybe I would think that maybe they'd be in the riverbed or drainage line out of the wind. But they want to be in the sun. They want the warmth. It's got nothing to do with looking for predators. It is a little quieter perhaps being out on the road than it is being in amongst the grasses in the bush with this kind of wind blowing. They don't have to be as alert. But there isn't anything that's going to really... There's nothing here that's preying on them except humans. And they're quite relaxed with us. As long as we're around, there are going to be no poachers. There are too many guards driving around with guns. For there to be poachers. Oh shoot. Morning. Morning all. Fine, and you? Only 6. Yeah, we business. Another part. Roadblock. Yeah, big roadblock. Yeah. Karula, I found tracks on Zoe's. But after, I don't know where she went, because it looked like she was meeting the Mampimpanne on Zoe's. But I did. I went to Power Line and onto Impala Road. I didn't go as far as Sandy Patch. I think Susie went to Sandy Patch. Oh, okay. You're not going to go that way. There's a roadblock. Broke up there, Seb, sorry. Leaving 6 from Kombi Lalapanzi on Weaver's Nest, able unlock. Dawn wants to know what animals go after the rhino. Can you go again? Morning, Albert. They're on Weaver's Nest. between Treehouse Dam Road and Chelapan Road. Rhino calves are vulnerable to predation by hyena, I was going to say rhino, by hyena and maybe lion, remote possibility. Lion tracks heading south, and they're quite fresh. Huh. Interesting. Maybe this was Sticks yesterday, because they ended up at Sticks females and young male ended up at twin dams. These lions supposedly have ended up somewhere on Nyala Road South, Battalier Road, somewhere there. What is that? Is that another rhino? No, it's a buffalo. Okay, we'll see him on the way back. Behind some bushes, big buffalo. Just want to take a look along Nyala Road South. So, I've known hyena to wear down the rhino and her calf to the point where they've been able to take the calf. I don't know about lion. I guess there might be an incident or two of lion taking a rhino calf, but generally nothing is able to take down an adult rhino. I don't know if it's my imagination or this wind's getting colder. It isn't a very pleasant wind at all. And what the rhino are doing, most animals are doing, anyway, to get out of this wind. Sandy, do the baboons try and get into my house? Are we talking about, I don't know, you're talking about my room here at the lodge, or are we talking about home, Timbavati home, Sandy? I guess I can answer for both then, just in case. I'm not too sure which you mean. But here at camp, I don't baboon-proof my room. In fact, I've actually sometimes been sitting at my desk and had a baboon jump into the window, or onto the window frame, and of course disappear immediately when it sees me there. It's hard to baboon-proof things. I'm lucky at home. A long time ago I used to have a baboon that used to raid the house. Now the baboons don't come my place anymore. Well, they haven't for a number of years, and I hope it stays that way, because the house is left open most of the time. Impala deep in the bush over there. Lots of rhino tracks. Tracks here of that baby rhino. Very baby. Not part of the group of 6. Tiny little one. One of these mornings we're going to find her and her calf. Right now, take a look at a particular area that might very well have some lion. Back home. Thanks, Andy. I do have mesh on the windows at home. That helps a lot with keeping things out. But I'm lucky that there is a local troop of baboons, but they don't come to my place anymore. It's a very dry region. It's on top of a kind of not a ridge, but it's on top of a hill. And they tend to stay down in the low-lying areas where the dry riverbeds are. Having a look, because there's an eroded, very badly eroded area up ahead that I have been to with a vehicle before, but I've found lion there also. When there's been lion in this area, look quickly. Well, I was hoping to get a growl, but nothing's in there. Bean buffalo. Somewhere between here and Battalier Road are those 5 lion. There's a very eroded area, flat sandy area. Well, it's not so flat, but it's open sandy area that's further in there. It's a lot more overgrown than when I was in here. That was almost, probably it's about 2 years ago that I was last in here with the Styx Pride. Of course, it was the jigger. It was easier to maneuver in tight places, but it wasn't as overgrown as this. Yebo. Tomorrow morning, I guess we'll follow up on Lion Tracks and Karula. Since we didn't have any luck today. Judging by the radio, not many game drive vehicles in there much like either. They did find lion up on Whippleshoek, and there was talk of Tundi crossing from Chitwa into Torchwood. Tundi, who we know as Saseka. Dawn, you know, if we've ever done a safari and not seen a single animal. We have, Dawn. There have been times when that is possible. We don't even see an impala. Sometimes, in fact, come August, in July, August, the colder months than this. But in August you can get these grey days. After a good day you get a grey day. It's overcast and windy and dry. You can see nothing. It's not only Wild Earth Safari, but in wherever I've lived, whether it's the Okavango or in Tanzania or Kenya, doesn't matter where you are in the bush, you get these times when there's weather changes and temperature changes, and it affects the animals in such a way that you don't get to see very much. It happens. Hello, Angie. Why don't we take the jigger on the drive? At the moment, we do have the jigger kitted out, but the equipment is slightly different. It doesn't quite have the broadcast ability, the Gunda. So it needs a couple of mechanical things that need to be done to the jigger. And you're also most welcome to the safari this morning. It has been a little quiet, but 6 rhino, elephant, giraffe and zebra and wildebeest. I saw a melanistic goshawk. I'm sorry you didn't. I would have liked to have shown it to you. Anyways, we're heading up to Treehouse Dam. Maybe that elephant's here just to say goodbye for the morning. Evidently there's an elephant on quarantine. That's probably him then. Could be him. Could be one of his buddies. Let's see what's here. I don't think I've been to Treehouse Dam for a while now. there's a lily trotter on the other side. That's about it. See if we can get to quarantine. Close off with an elephant. Nothing here at the dam. There'll even be time to get back to quarantine, but we can try. Elizabeth, hello. Here we get Lyme disease. Lyme's disease. Or the ticks are carried. Where's the elephant? There's our elephant. See, he's got his head against a tree again. I'm sure he's got a headache. Headache or tusk ache, one of the two. He's got his head against that apple leaf. So let me see if we can move. Otherwise, let's get to quarantine. We'll go and see that elephant. If he's in the open, it's a lot better. I don't know if we're going to make it with it. It's hardly any time to get to quarantine now. Say goodbye with this Ellie. But yeah, he's got his tusks and his head against the tree again. The tree in between his two tusks. Rubbing his eye. So he's pushing his head against the tree with the tree between his tusks. That's very much what he was doing with that marula tree this morning. I'm picking up something from him that is uncomfortable. I wonder if it's not the base of his tusk that's maybe causing pain, or maybe it is the likes of a headache or something. But we will never know. Definitely something is up because of the way he's pushing his head into the tree, using the tree to rest his head. He's kind of pushing against it as though it's sort of pushing against pain. Don't know. That's my interpretation. Might be wrong. No, he's once again, just like he was doing with that marula tree, using the tree to lean on. I haven't seen an elephant do that. I've seen an elephant with very big tusks push his tusks into the fork of a tree to use that as a resting place so that he could rest his head. But I can't imagine this guy doing that, because he's not that young and his tusks are quite fat. Because that's an awkward position to be resting. Anyway. Guess we will never know. Thank you for joining me this morning, everyone. My name is Mark, and Daniel is with me on camera. And from our elephant here, and the rhino, and the other animals we saw, thank you for joining us, and thank you for watching Wild Earth Safari. Bye-bye for now. We'll see you tomorrow. And hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. And see how you're doing, old man.